to me, you just find a way to stand. You just do. It is so hard, but you find a way to stand. And going through scripture heavily, the two moments that have stuck out to me through all of this with regard to standing, one where you're standing in suffering, and then one where you're standing against the wickedness of the devil. And the most beautiful depiction of standing in the suffering for me was in John chapter 19, verse 25, where you have Mary, the mother of Jesus, standing at the foot of the cross. She just watched the most unjust violence take place against the love of her life, love of our life. And what did she do? She didn't scream. She didn't accuse. She didn't try to explain God. She wasn't pulling her hair out. She just stood. She had her friends next to her, but she stood with composure and divine power of patience. And it's so, when you trust in the Lord, you have no idea what you can bear until you're tried. And in those moments, you just know that his grace is sufficient because you can feel it. You can deeply feel it. And the part where you're standing against the wickedness of the devil is really interesting because it's in Ephesians 6, and what I find so fascinating, I was always obsessed with Ephesians 5 because it talks about marriage. And it's really interesting that Ephesians 5 talks about the proper order of marriage and love. And then Ephesians 6 prepares you for the warfare. So if you have an Ephesians 5 marriage, you better read Ephesians 6. Because the Lord's going to use your marriage in ways that will blow your mind. And what stuck out to me, what's so powerful about Ephesians 6, verses 10 through 18, is that Paul was very intentional about using the word stand twice. The first time you stand is your choice because you decided to put on the full armor of God. You did. As feeble of an attempt that it was, you put it on. But then, in verse 14, after you're standing your ground, it says, stand firm then. And he's emphasizing the perseverance, but he's also emphasizing that you have to know that your strength can only take you so far. My grandma used to say, your running legs can only take you so far. Jesus does the rest. But when you stand firm, that's not you, that's God's strength. You stood the first time, ready for battle, bracing yourself. God says, just stand firm. And I'll never forget getting off of Air Force 2. And I looked at Usha and I said, I have no idea how I'm gonna do this. And I know that I've shared this story before, but I wanna share it with you again because if any of you guys are going through a really hard time in your life, it was the most practical response that anyone could give. And I loved it. And she said, you know, when you're on an airplane, flying with your kids, and there's 15 minutes left on this plane ride, and your kids are losing their mind. I mean, toys are flying everywhere. Passengers are looking at you like, why are you a terrible parent? You're trying so hard to negotiate with this little human that has negotiation on lock because it's always why, no, why, no. And she's like, and then the plane lands. And you survived those 15 minutes. And then the next 15 minutes. And then the next. And to me, when I stood watching my husband's casket get taken off that plane, she held my hand. I had one of our other family friends with us. And we just stood. And you just do it. You just do it. And you stand. And I say all this because the way that God has carried me is the way that he wants to carry you through your trial, through your life. My cross is mine to carry. You have your own. It's your own cross to bear. One is not better or worse than the other. It's just different. Life is different for all of us, but what we profoundly share in common is that we are all operating within it's just our world is so broken. Our world is so evil. Our world is so dark, and we're all touched by confusion. We're all touched by disappointment. We're all touched by loss. And we all suffer in different ways that are personal. But what I want to remind you of is that, yeah, this world, you might feel as if it is going to break you, but Jesus already broke himself for us.